Well, hello guys, welcome back. I figured a lot out actually. I've noticed everybody's been quiet. I think Hermes just has his hand over everybody's mouth. It's like, keep it shut. Um, Hermes had been helping by making sure that none of my communication was working right until he was sure his brother was well, truly in the form his brother wants to be worshipped in. Because the same God that loves you dearly, if they see a relative of theirs not getting their just due, will help you out there. So that happened. And once I reached an agreement with Dionysus that Dionysus was not going back into the nice classical Greek god of, just looking really chill box, he's much happier. It's like having a giant panther roaming around the house because he's going to be wild and he's going to do what he wants and he's just going to be happy about it. And he got a couple stupid promises out of me because you know how you agree to people when you're not really paying attention. He was like, if it rains, can I have this? I'm like, yeah, sure, because it's not raining today. It rained. So I was like, okay. And we've been working on his altar, and I've been tracking down research on stuff. There are a few references to him being a god of war, and I'm like, wait, that's Ares' job, but as you know, the more you study the gods, none of them fit in a tiny, neat little box, as Loki also has a war connection. And the interesting thing was, if you pay attention to, the story of, the Bake and that, he spent a good time in Asia teaching people how to make wine and then returned. And there's one interpretation that says when he returned, his maids, the Meonides that were following him around, were Asian. And he himself in human guise looked Asian, and I'm like, this is very interesting. And then I thought about Inari and how Inari really hasn't been around, and how Inari always wore a mask to speak to me. And it's just been very strange because Dionysus took quite well to the mock sushi. Very well, as a matter of fact, almost like he knows what it tastes like. So we've been having thoughts about things, or I have. He's quite content with causing chaos. That was one of the things that gave me misgivings. A lot of people actually, describe him in a lot of the ways we describe Loki as being chaos and destruction and tearing your whole world apart. And I was like, I can't possibly cope with two. And Loki's like, I picked him out. I picked him out. And of course, if you ask Dionysus, Dionysus picked Dionysus out, and Loki didn't help at all. But thankfully they like each other because, you would not want two forces of chaos going at each other in your home. You would not have a home left. And it was interesting because I was reading about people that had experienced the more chaotic side of Dionysus, because that's the side that's decided to make himself a home. And he's perfectly chill, by the way, if you're not resisting him. Um, and the one guy talks about he went to an event and they decided to do it as a Wiccan rite, and he had no problem with a Wiccan rite as long as they stay thematically sound. And they called down Dionysus and his lady, and unfortunately for the rest of the time they ignored his lady. And I didn't know this, but since she was the lady of the maze and half sister, I believe, to the Minotaur, Ariane, I probably just butchered her name, I'm sorry. She has been known by some people who have experienced her to be like the embodiment of madness at times. And I thought, that's really not what I want in my house. Not that I was disrespecting a goddess, but this goddess I met was sweet and calm and chill. But remember, Persephone is spoken of in the same way that people are like, yeah, you make her mad, she's the one that hands out, being crazy. Well, this guy talks about how she was ignored, she was called down, she arrived, and she was ignored. And Dionysus was kind of ignored at the end, and they spoke to Aphrodite. Now, some people will argue Aphrodite is the same goddess. I'm not getting into that mess because I'm smart. And all hell broke loose because, they called a goddess down and they ignored her. And she was rather pissed, but he never tells you. I never found, in his blog, the follow-up of what exactly happened, but I'm like, I can imagine. I can imagine. And it was just a thing of, I tried to keep him out. He basically breached a wall and walked in like a boss. He's like, "You're not keeping me out." So it was something to adjust to, and I kept going to Loki for advice because they're not like twins, even though Loki will refer to them as twins, but in a way, since Loki taught me how to tread water, he's like, "You stupid fool, you're going through all the same stuff you did with me. I taught you how to tread water. Tread water like a little fox that you are." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And now Dionysus seems pretty chill, but you can feel he does have this aspect to him that is connected with the underworld that is dark. He was like, he wanted his skulls back, please. And he wanted some other stuff for the altar, so he does have a lot of this stuff, and I usually don't feel comfortable moving ahead with some stuff. But he has Loki's teaching style where he just grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and threw me into the deep end, because I went to look at his Tumblr, because how bad could the Tumblr of Dionysus be? People were laughing hysterically. It was like Pornhub, only with Dionysus's name splashed around. I was like, my stars and pearls. Yeah, it was quite the awakening experience, and that doesn't mean everybody that worships him is going to start that kind of blog. I think it's really dismissive of people, like, say, asexual people that want to serve, to say this is how you have to go serve him. But it's been quite the wake-up call, because he wanted me to get at least a general idea of all the ways he served in modern time. And he definitely wanted himself that second statue. Why? I don't know, because I keep trying to ask him to be the voice of reason, and he's not being the voice of reason currently. But at least Hermes is being a lot more friendly now, his brothers, and so we did a lot of interesting things, and it was liberating, but at the same time, it was like, like I said, I had my misgivings, and honestly, to be quite cynical and frank about it, I was like, this is a Lokean channel. What happens if Loki goes away for 6 months and I have Dionysus? We're gonna go down the tubes and have like 2 Dionysus followers, Dionysus, whatever, watching and, going, she ain't Hellenistic, it's gonna turn out really poorly. And we had that talk already, and it was like, this draft horse is too old to keep trotting over to a new system every time another god comes walking in. I just could not do it. I'm not Shinto because Inari was here if it was Inari. I'm not whatever because, the Norse gods came in and everything else. I just can't keep hopping systems every time someone else comes in. And we agree with that. If it would turn to the point where all of a sudden all the Greek gods were here, because what had been giving me like panic attacks, it felt like they were all trying to talk at once, then that might change in the future. But gods know I can't read Greek, I can't speak Greek. Thankfully it's not a issue, but it's like I don't feel comfortable and called to worship, all the Olympians. It's just I'm working with a few right now, and I'm on good terms with others, but it's like, I told him, I said, I'm really worried. I'm like, this is what little livelihood I have and try to have to build up. And I said, if Loki goes away for a while and we're working on our relationship, where does that leave me holding the bag? And Dionysus just looked at me and said, how would you like to be in the bag? And I'm like, okay. But Loki will still be here, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up and be honest, because that was really tormenting me. I'm like, what happens if Loki goes? And I'm to the point where I trust Loki enough that if he would go away for, say, 6 months or a year or whatever, I'm not saying he will, but if he would and be like, you have to work strictly with Dionysus, I would be okay. I trust Loki to return. I completely trust Loki with my life, and he knows that. But at the same time, I was like, oh my god, my livelihood, what am I going to do? So, it's something else. If you guys want to stick with me, stick with me. You know how I am with the gods. This is all feels like it's gearing up and gearing up and gearing up. And a week from now, I might be going, I don't feel anything, and be talking about Loki again. We never know on this channel. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up, because I thought that's really not fair if you tuned in for a Lokean channel and it becomes all Dionysus or all Hermes or all something else. So if you guys like what you see, like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.